It finally happened. The Emperor of Volcor is dead. Blood spilled in his own throne room. And the culprit? None other than the elusive assassin from the pits. Arachne of the spider's web. Or at least that's what they want you to think. Hello, Internet, and welcome to Game Theory, the only show that knows unequivocally what's inside of the cracked bauble. But that's a story for another day, because today, theorists, we're talking about Dynasty, the newest expansion in the hit trading card game Flesh and Blood. This set takes us to the fiery lands of Volcor, and depicts the Emperor of these parts being assassinated within his own throne room. The culprit seemingly being the new hero from the set, Arachne, an assassin for hire. And at surface level, this all checks out. Arachne is depicted as someone who is willing to do any job, as long as they get paid for it. And the Emperor has been shown to be quite unpopular among his subjects. The previous set, Uprising, even depicts a growing civil war within the lands of Volcor over dissatisfaction with the current regime. There is, of course, plenty of motivation among the people to hire someone to take out the Emperor. And that's where the new card Regicide comes in, an Arachne specialization depicting him slaying the Emperor. LSS, the company behind the game, has stated before that they are looking to have a greater focus on story in the coming sets, and integrating said story into the cards. With that in mind, the card Regicide states that if it hits a royal hero, they instantly lose the game, and the Emperor just so happens to have a royal subtype in-game. To further drive home the point is the art in the card itself, which literally shows Arachne standing tall over the corpse of the Emperor, crown in hand. It's pretty graphic. LSS is really using that 15+ rating here. So that's it then. Arachne was hired to kill the Emperor, and successfully did so, as shown in the card Regicide. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. You see, after going over the set itself, there's just a lot of things about this story that just don't add up. I, Matpat James Smith, which is my name by the way, propose that Arachne did not in fact kill the Emperor, and I even have proof of this. Ember in the Ash is a piece of web fiction released alongside the set itself, depicting the hero Dromai walking into the throne room filled with corpses to witness Arachne standing over the dead corpse of the Emperor before he flees out of the palace. The scene depicted matches that found on the card Regicide, and yeah, the art of the card in question is shown in its entirety within the story itself, alluding to the fact that Dromai witnessed the actual event shown in the card. And while you might think that this confirms that Arachne was the killer, with the eyewitness and all that, you would be wrong. Dromai's presence is what proves that Arachne couldn't be the killer. You see, the card Regicide, which has been the biggest piece of evidence for why Arachne killed the Emperor, has a second line of text. When the combat chain closes, you lose the game. Simply put, if Regicide hits a royal hero like the Emperor, they lose and the game ends. And if it doesn't hit, then Arachne loses. Swing at the king, you best not miss after all. But that is under normal circumstances. You see, if there are multiple heroes in the arena of Flesh and Blood, even if one of them loses, the game continues until there's only one hero left. Per the rules of the game, even if Arachne successfully committed regicide against the Emperor, they would still lose, since Dromai is still in the throne room. But Arachne managed to get away, a direct contradiction to the card Regicide itself, a card, mind you, that acts as the strongest piece of evidence for Arachne's crime. And the conclusion? Arachne did not kill the Emperor. So then, what was Arachne doing in the throne room then? Well, what likely happened was that they were hired to assassinate the Emperor by a different party. Keep in mind, the Emperor himself was not popular. It's not much of a stretch to imagine two groups of people wanting him dead. But when Arachne arrived to do the deed, discovered the Emperor was already dead. As they went over to investigate the scene before them, Dromai walks in, and seeing the assassin over the Emperor's body, falsely believes that Arachne was the killer. And with that, theorists, we've proven Arachne's innocence. Or at least partial innocence, I guess. They were still plotting murder after all. But that's beside the point. The real question remains, however, if Arachne didn't do it, who really killed the Emperor? Well, I, Matpat Pattycake, will solve this second mystery as well. And once again, we must turn to the cards in Dynasty for clues. You see, within the set, there are a number of cards that have been directly confirmed to exist in the Emperor's palace. These cards are special as they have a dedicated slot within the packs, so we have a direct and tangible list of cards to investigate. And through the investigation, we have found a single suspicious card from among them that shows signs of recent violence. You see, the Emperor's palace holds a trophy room that holds a number of relics of war. This room is full of many weapons and equipment that can be found as cards within the set, and since these weapons are meant for display purposes, they're all quite clean, showing no signs of blood or violence anywhere. That is, except for one. Rock is one of these weapons, a supposed relic of war, and while all the other weapons stay squeaky clean, if you look at the bottom of Rock, you will notice that it is actually covered in blood. And that's not the only suspicious part about this card. Our team here at Game Theory Incorporated did a thorough investigation and found that the word rock is in fact spelled incorrectly. Believe it or not, the word actually contains a C in it. Not only that, but the object shown in the art is not actually a standard rock, it's a statue. And it's not just any normal statue either. If you look closely at the slit in the statue's mouth, it becomes apparent. The statue is actually meant to hold a weapon within its mouth, a spear or axe perhaps. And this all makes sense. It was found within the palace's weapons storage room, designed to hold relics. It being used to display ornate weapons checks out. But then the question from the card remains, why was it so heavily misidentified? Well, the answer is pretty simple actually. The person who thought rock was a weapon was not supposed to be in the palace, as any normal member of the palace would not have made that mistake. So, to recap, a statue with signs of violence on it has been misidentified as a weapon by someone who very obviously should not have been in the Emperor's palace. Theorists, I think we found our murder weapon, and its name is Rock. And with the weapon in hand, we've got our first clue as to who the true culprit is. You see, Rock is designated in the game as a brute weapon, meaning only heroes of the brute class can use this card. This means a brute killed the Emperor, and I think I know which one did the deed. You see, something like the assassination of the Emperor is quite the feat, and definitely requires a lot of foresight and planning in order to successfully accomplish, especially without getting caught. And well, most brutes aren't really known for their ability to plan. Most brute cards emphasize their impulsivity after all. But through all the brute cards in the game, there is a single card that shows off an ability to think through things. The non-attack action Sand Sketch Plan is the only brute card in the game that shows foresight, and like how Regicide was tied directly to Arachne, this card is a specialization for a specific brute hero, Rhynar, the alpha predator of the Savage Lands. As a child, Rhynar was abandoned to the forest, and had to learn how to fend for himself, becoming a fierce and smart hunter, making him stand out among the brutes. Given his background, he definitely has the chops for committing the crime, but he also has a potential motive as well. You see, Rynar's home of the Savage Lands is right next to the Golden City of Solana, a place of righteousness and justice, with plenty of warriors and knights to boot. These warriors of Solana are very much at odds with Rhynar and the other brutes of the Savage Lands. They have traveled to the forest on multiple occasions in an attempt to slay Rhynar himself. The product Rhynar vs. Dorinthia shows off one of these skirmishes. But Solana and Dorinthia have other enemies as well, In the story Morlock Hill, it depicts the heroes Dorinthia and Bolton fighting against the evils found at the Demonastery. And while interesting, that is definitely a story for another time. The important thing is that Solana suffered some pretty heavy losses and decided that it would be in their best interest to ally themselves with other nations in Wraith to fight. Importantly, this story was released right before the set Uprising, which was the introductory set to Volcor, implying that Volcor was one such kingdom they were looking towards as an ally. And once again, things start to fall into place. Rhinar, who's been at odds with Solana, now hears they may be allying themselves with Volcor, which, keep in mind, is another kingdom bordering his home in the Savage Lands. This is an alliance he could put a stop to by removing the King of Volcor, so he broke into the palace, stole a weapon from the weapon room, and killed the Emperor in cold blood with it in his own throne room, all before Arachne got the chance. So in conclusion, Arachne is innocent, Sansa's Ness, and Rhinar killed the Emperor with rock. There's nothing the Emperor could have done to prevent it. You know, 'cause rock's effect. But anyway, that's just the beginning. Legend Story Studios seems to have a ton of plans for the story of Flesh and Blood, so we'll have to see what other secrets they hide within their game. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.